what? Did you think I was gone forever?
So I was one of those people that, even after like a dozen years, was still excited for Duke Nukem Forever. I didn't overly follow the development cycles or anything, but I do remember when that one teaser hit in like 2007. When I saw that, I was so hyped. Pretty sure at least a couple hundred of those views on YouTube were just from me. Like, if you were a preteen and watched that, guarantee it instantly made your balls drop. I watched it a bunch again while I was making this video, and the sheer testosterone in that clip actually made me grow a third testicle. Note to self, make sure to call the urologist ASAP. And then a little while after that, it got cancelled again. But then a few years later, there were rumblings about it again, and finally in 2011, the game dropped. I bought it on release, cautiously optimistic with the knowledge that it was probably not going to live up to the hype. And now today, I'm here to answer the age-old question, was Duke Nukem Forever actually good? Nope. Before firing this up, I actually remembered having some fun with the game. I was expecting my title to this video to be something like, I actually like Duke Nukem Forever, or something along those lines. But once I started playing it, I started remembering why a lot of the hatred is out there for this. That's probably also why I sold the game way back. I've gone broke a couple times in my adult life and had to sell my video games. Some I bought back right away as soon as I had the money, and others are Duke Nukem Forever. Luckily, I was able to scoop up a copy on eBay for less than $10, so here we are. I think the source of most of the issues with this game is that Duke Nukem isn't a wholly original series. It emulates the other games that release around its time. Like, the original version took inspiration from Doom, but it had a way better engine that was able to allow for vertical aiming and better graphics and effects, so they could pull off more realistic environments and objects. This game went through multiple iterations over the years and ended up releasing at a time where shooters were mostly Halo or Call of Duty style, i.e. the time I stopped playing first-person shooters. Now, I get it that both of those franchises are hugely popular, but neither one ever really appealed to me. Halo in particular was just way too slow-paced, and the recharging shield mechanic and needing to use cover just ain't for me. I will admit, I do have some fond memories of playing Halo 3 back in college. A couple of my buddies had Xbox 360s, so we would connect them and play split screen together in the dorms. And that was the first game I remember playing on console where you could have 4 players doing the story mode together, so that was pretty cool, especially back in the day. I don't know, maybe other games did it first, but Halo 3 was the first game that I played that let you do that. Anyway, enough reminiscing. Now on to complaining about the game. Starting off with the guns, which are probably the most important aspect of any shooter, and I'm just going to get this out of the way right off the bat. Whoever made the decision to only allow you to hold 2 guns,
eat shit and die.
Seriously, Duke Nukem only has 2 guns now? The dude who used to carry a full arsenal on him back in the old days and we all just turned a blind eye and didn't ask where he was storing all of them? Technically you have 4 weapons with the pipe bombs and the trip mines, but still. And while the pipe bombs can be useful and they're definitely more efficient having them as a secondary weapon rather than having to switch to that weapon, particularly like in the old game, does anyone actually use the trip mines? Like, ever? I used them once or twice when I saw an enemy was trying to break through a door or something. Usually though, when I threw them, they ended up going to waste and didn't kill anything, so what's the point? I remember hearing there was a patch update where they expanded it to 4 guns, so when I threw the disc in, the first thing I did was select update, and there was no update. So I googled it, and the AI result says, yeah, it's for PS3 too. But I couldn't find it, and I checked the settings again and even tried updating the game again, but no luck. So I grabbed my other AI and asked it, and it says that it's there, but when I say I can't find it, it's apparently pulling that from some random douche post on Reddit, so it's not actually on PS3. So as usual, Reddit is full of shit. Okay, whatever. So I'm stuck with 2 guns at a time, which sucks on its own, but if you're gonna go that route, you gotta at least give us some good guns, which they didn't really do. So first off, we have the pistol, of course. If this game either had an extended clip so you're not reloading every 5 seconds, or maybe let us dual wield them, maybe it wouldn't be as bad, but nope, they didn't give us either of those options. This gun just sucks. So we have a shotgun, of course, because it's a shooter game, we have to have one. And I remember when Civvy was bitching about Doom Eternal's ammo limit.
But you can eventually upgrade it to 24? 24?!
This shotgun barely holds more than that. And you gotta re-rack this one after 7 shells, which Eternal didn't make you do, and overall, even though the shotgun is one of the better guns in the game, and it does feel punchy when you get a bullseye at close range, it's basically useless from more than like 10 feet away. The Ripper holds 200 rounds, and a lot of times it takes me a full clip just to kill 1 or 2 enemies, so that's bullshit. It has a super slow reload too, so a lot of times I end up having to switch to another gun before the reload animation completes because I'm getting blasted. And then I have to wait until I get a breather to switch back and finish reloading. Next up is the Enforcer gun, which is one of the new guns added to this game. It shoots 3 homing projectiles at a time, and I did use this one a few times, but again, it has barely any ammo capacity. Overall, I give this an emphatic meh. We have the alien blaster things that are completely worthless. It shoots in bursts, but I can never hit anything because it's so slow. Like, I'm not a physicist, but I legit don't think it's even possible for a projectile to move that slow. Whatever, after the first area, you never really have to use them again. There's a Captain version 2, which I think is different, but I'm not sure because I never even picked it up. The RPG does good damage, but holds 5 rockets. That's it. And a lot of times you have to use this weapon against bosses and dropships because you have to use explosives. So what they'll do is they'll set an ammo crate nearby, and then all you do is shoot off your 5 shots, then run back to the crate to refill, then shoot 5 more, then run back to refill again. Why not just give me some frickin' actual ammo capacity? The railgun is an alright sniper alternative. It shoots a little too slow for my liking, but it's especially helpful for taking out turret enemies. Since they have to be stationary behind the turret, it just works for that. For a whole 12 shots. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Usually when you get this, you pick it up, you kill a handful of faraway enemies, and then you just throw it down and pick up your old weapon that you were using before. The Devastator is back, which is a trademark Duke gun. You only get this one in a few spots throughout the game, so I didn't get to use it very much. At least it does have a totally realistic and optimal ammo capacity, though.
Nice. Nice.
We get to use this in some boss fights, and with that, there's a glimpse of Duke's old fast-paced circle-strafing badassery, but just a glimpse. The last 2 guns we have are the Shrink Ray and the Freeze Thrower. These are both gimmicky guns that are carryovers from 3D, and they both had their uses in that game, but in this one with the 2-gun limit, I found myself barely using either one. The Shrink Ray is admittedly a bit overpowered when you use it properly. Like, the assault commanders can be shrunken down and then taken out a lot easier in their mini-me form. I didn't use this gun on much else and only came across it a couple times in the whole game anyway. And the Freeze Gun. Sadly, I only really used this in the first section where you get it. It seems to have potential to be a good gun, but I just couldn't justify it taking up 50% of my gun allotment. It recharges, which is nice, but the recharge is just too long. You basically have to have this gun sit in your inventory recharging, and then use it for 2 or 3 enemies, maybe in a fight, and then switch off again. Once frozen, you can walk up and shatter the enemies, and I didn't try it out enough, but I'm assuming since you execute them like that, you get your full health back. So yeah, this could have potential. Now, after hating on the guns, I also do have to throw a possible caveat to their suckiness, and that would be my suckiness at gaming. So I played the game on easy mode like I do a lot of games. I have no qualms of admitting I suck. I play games for fun, and I usually do play on easy or medium mode. I just don't get the appeal of having to die and redo parts over and over and over and over again. No hate on the people who do like playing the Soulsborne games and that, but it's just not for me. What I'm getting at is, I don't know if it's the fact that I suck, or the game controls are bad, or it legit could be my controller too. The only reason I think that might be a factor is because I did beat 3D on Come Get Some mode back in the day, and more recently I beat Doom Eternal on Hurt Me Plenty on both my PS4 and my Switch. And I genuinely think I could beat it on Ultra Violence because of the live system and the weapon upgrades and stuff. The thing is, I still have my original PS4 controller, and on Switch I got a really nice off-brand one that actually feels really responsive and works well. For my PS3 though, I haven't had an official controller in years. I've been using off-brand controllers, and I did notice that I had a lot of trouble with platformers too. More than usual. And I've seen a lot of other people complaining online as well, not just for PS3, but in general, that a lot of third-party controllers just have crappy joysticks. Something about the dead zones not being right, and some of them just being all or nothing. So if you press the stick up, the controller recognizes it as either not up at all or fully up.
Phrasing.
So yeah, if anyone knows of a decent third-party controller for PS3, please let me know. Moving on to the enemies, and that's another gripe I have with a lot of shooters anymore, especially the ones that came out around this time, and that's just the lack of enemies at a time. I don't know if it was just down to the fact that 3D modeled enemies are more CPU intensive than sprite-based enemies, but it took away from the unstoppable one-man army type game that older boomer shooters had. For instance, in Doom, Duke Nukem, Blood, whatever, you'd walk into an area and there'd be 10, 20, 30 plus enemies sometimes, and you just had to run around the room mowing them down one by one. But in shooters that came out around this time, you'd walk into an area the same size, and there'd just be like 5 bullet sponge enemies. So it would take the same amount of firepower to clear them all out, but it's just way less satisfying. Seriously, if I'm playing a game and like a low-level enemy takes more than 2 point-blank shotgun blasts directly to the face, I'm out. Okay, on to the enemies themselves. First up, we have the assault troopers and captains, and these are the first enemies we run into, and they're just more annoying than anything else. I already can't hit shit in this game, and when I did finally get them in my sights and get a few shots off, they freaking teleport away. And at least in my playthrough, I never got that satisfying scene like in 3D where they'd teleport just to reappear and die instantly. So I don't know if that's actually possible in this game or not. They also fly up in the air, and as I mentioned, I'm not sure if it's the crappy controls, my crappy controller, or my crappy reflexes, but they're just way too hard to hit. They do sometimes drop their weapons when they die, but that gun is simply useless.
Get that crap out of here.
The pig cops are also back, and they're a staple of the series, but these things suck more than ever. They used to be hit-scanning D-bags who'd wait around the corner for you, but now a lot of them are more melee enemies, even though they do eventually start using weapons. The problem is, especially early game, they're just too fast and have this ridiculously awkward, unrealistic lunge that just locks onto you from wherever. And then even on easy mode, they kill you in like 2 or 3 swipes. This area of the casino in my initial playthrough took multiple tries because I was just inundated with them and only had my shotgun and pistol. And I kept having to reload, and then they'd do that terribly programmed jump thing, and then I'd get taken out. This section wasn't as bad when I went through the second time, due to not realizing my capture card or computer or whatever wasn't keeping up with this game, so I had to go back with the frame rate dropped in OBS. And on that second time through, I also had a little bit more health, and that's also when I tried out one of my other controllers. The Octobrains return, and they're so much more annoying this time around. In the old game, there was a programming bug or something where rockets insta-killed them, so in order to remedy that, they made it super annoying this time by having them be able to catch your pipe bombs and rockets and throw them back at you. Couple that with the fact that they act as fodder in some of the boss fights where the boss can only be damaged by explosives, and that makes those fights needlessly frustrating at times. Then there's the mini Octos, and a lot of times they were near these facehugger ripoff things. They're both really fast and annoying and take more damage than they should. For real, if an enemy is the size of a gopher, it should be killed by one hit from basically anything. There's two returning enemies though that I actually liked. We have the Enforcers, which we don't see till later in the game. Luckily by that point I had some extra health and a slightly better handle on the controls because these guys are a little bit tough. They have that gun that shoots the homing explosive ammo and are a little bit spongy. One of them acts as a boss in one section of the game though, and that was actually pretty fun. Overall, I didn't hate these. There's the Assault Commander 2, which is the highest tier non-boss enemy. These fatties are used sparingly and overall not too bad either. They take a ton of damage to take down and can shoot rockets at you and chop you up with their spinning blade, but they're a big enough target so you can actually hit them, and since there's usually only one or two at a time, they're manageable and make for a decent challenge. Bosses are hit or miss in this game. I guess the first quote-unquote boss fight is the Mothership battle, which is just a by-the-numbers turret fight. You shoot the mothership when you can, and then you also have to deal with some other ships and aliens and stuff in between. You just have to balance the turret's heat level, because if it overheats, you gotta wait longer for it to cool down. This may have been an okay set-piece fight back then, but it was just kinda boring overall. We get two Battlelord fights, and they're just as bad as the Battlelords in 3D. They just fire so fast that as soon as you poke your head out of cover, you start taking damage. You have to use explosives again, so we just hit them with a few rockets, run away to find the resupply crate, get some more, rinse and repeat. It does have that funny end of fight humiliation at least, where Duke treats his ball bag like a speed bag. And we've seen earlier in the game just how hard Duke can punch.
Would you like me to trash your mics?
Brutality.
So that must have hurt. Coming back is also the alien queen, who was called the Queen Bitch in the original games, and she's okay. I remember in one of the trailers when they showed her, he had a soundbite of
Hell, I'd still hit it.
which I thought was pretty funny. I mean, she does got 3 tiggle bitties, and okay, I'm back. At first I was having a hard time with her, because you do have to use a pipe bomb to bounce off that bounce pad to wake her up at the start, and I was thinking that was the only way you could cause damage. But I realized though, after that initial wake up, you just have to wait for her to signal that she's going to attack, and then light her up with a rocket or two, and then jump back behind cover to restock your ammo. The only real annoying part is the fodder enemies. You have the facehugger things that are hard to hit, and the Octobrains who will catch your rockets and throw them back at you. In the Shrunken Machine level, we have that boss fight against an Enforcer. It's just a regular Enforcer, but since we're small, it takes a lot more damage to take him down. When I first ran into this fight, I didn't even realize it was a boss fight. I was trying to run away from him like earlier in the game when I had to run from a few enemies before I noticed his health bar. Overall, this is one of the better boss fights. It was a fun gimmick, and it's nice to have one of the fights that I didn't have to rely on explosives and turrets only. So we have the Octa King, who we fight twice. The first time is just a turret section with nothing special there. The second time though is super annoying. We're on a tiny moving platform which barely provides any cover from anything, so I was constantly in danger health mode. We have more regular Octobrains in this fight too, so again, it's another fight where we have to use explosives on the boss, but we can't use them on the other enemies, so you gotta constantly switch. And not in the super cool quick switch way like we have in Doom Eternal. I finally took him down, and then it did actually surprise me when he started pulling me towards him and gained his health back. Luckily I noticed in time and I was able to shred him with the Devastator though. Overall, the boss fights up to this point didn't give me too much trouble, but then I fought the Energy Leech. My god, this thing sucks. You're underwater, which is already bad enough, and his attacks kill you in like 2 hits on easy mode. I'm assuming on higher difficulties it's probably 1-hit kills. And remember, you can only damage bosses with explosives and turrets, and since I can only hold 2 weapons, I didn't think to hang on to my Devastator, so my only real option was the RPG, with its whole 5 rocket capacity. So having to constantly replenish your ammo, and your oxygen, and trying to dodge his insanely powerful attacks that he can change direction on mid-swing was so frustrating. At one point I actually got up and stepped away from my controller after dying over and over and over and over again, because I thought maybe I was fighting him wrong or something, so I went online to search just to make sure and see if there was any good strats.
Here's what your search turned up.
Sex with animals.
Nope, no luck though. Apparently I was fighting him the intended way and just sucking at it. There is something about a glitch where if you have the freeze ray, it puts you both down to 1 health and then you should be able to switch to another gun and kill it easily after that. It says it's patched on the PC version, but I'm assuming it still works on console. Still, once I was there, I had no way of getting the freeze gun without reloading a previous chapter and having to do the whole annoying water level again, so I wasn't doing that. Finally, I did somehow take it out with the same exact strategy I was using, so I'm guessing it just came down to luck. Lastly, we have the Cycloid Emperor. The first fight is at the very beginning of the game, and it's a reimagining of the original final boss from 3D. We're still fighting him in the stadium, and you basically just keep your distance and circle strafe around, and then wait for ammo drops once you're depleted. At the end, we get to kick his eye through the field goal again, which was such a cool moment way back when. He returns at the end of the game, too, to act as the final boss, and you know what? I actually really enjoyed this boss fight. It was a nice spin on the original, and I think really well done. We start off with just a pistol, and remember we can't hurt bosses with just regular bullets, so we have to avoid attacks for a while until enemies with explosives start spawning in. Then we need to kill them to get their rockets, and then kill them more to get refills to keep getting rockets. See, this was a good way of implementing fodder enemies into a fight without just having them be there to be a distraction. I mean, that was part of it, but they also served a purpose. We got to deplete his health bar a couple times, and then eventually they drop an ammo crate thing along with our Devastator so we can layeth the final smacketh down. And then after we pull off that final part of his equipment, he falls to the ground and his eye pops out again. And while not as dramatic as kicking his eye through a field goal or ripping off his head and shitting down his neck like the Lunar Apocalypse boss, pissing in his eye socket is still a good way of disrespecting that one-eyed freak. Onto the levels themselves, and it's sort of a mixed bag. There's definitely some variety here, but variety isn't always synonymous with good. I'm not going to go into painstaking detail on them, instead just kind of give a brief overview. Maybe I'll do another video going more in depth level by level since I do have all the footage. According to the wiki, there's 24 total levels, but the last one doesn't really count as it's just a cutscene, so 23 levels. It does feel longer than that though, as at least on PS3 a lot of the levels are split up into 2 or 3 parts. I don't know if that's a console limitation thing where they had to split them up together and run properly or not, or if it's also like that on PC and 360 as well. It takes a good 5 or 6 levels for the game to get going. For instance, the first level, Duke Lives, has you fighting the Cycloid Emperor, but then that's about it. The rest of it is just walking around doing non-action-y things. These first few levels have minor bits of combat sprinkled in, but overall are more exploration-based. We also get introduced to the ego boost system here. Some things like scoring baskets or lifting heavy weights make sense as something that would boost your ego. But then there's also things like looking at porno mags, which I think would actually reduce your ego, wouldn't it? You don't really start getting guns in actual battle arenas till the end of the 5th level, the Lady Killer. A lot of the earlier parts of that level are spent being shrunk and driving around an RC car, or doing platforming sections. Because everyone knows platforming and driving are the most important part of any first-person shooter. From there, we move on through the streets showing all of Vegas being destroyed, and we make our way down into the alien hive. This part wasn't terrible, but I just wasn't a fan of the dark, dingy, slimy area. Luckily, we make our way out of there pretty quickly, and after a boss fight and a trip to the strip club, we're back outside. We make a quick stop at Duke Burger, which, despite a couple frustrating platforming sections, was actually a pretty fun level. We then have a couple levels involving the Mighty Foot, which is Duke's monster truck, since of course he has a monster truck. Even though I made fun of the RC section earlier, I actually enjoyed the monster truck parts. It helps sell the scale of the game as you're driving around to all the different destinations and then fighting your way through the actual level, location, whatevers. The fact that you're actually able to run down enemies is fun too. Like, it's mostly filler, but it's fun filler. It was also around that time that I noticed I was saying to myself more and more, that was actually a fun level. And I'm thinking that's why I was initially remembering this game to be more fun than it is. Don't get me wrong, this game takes a while to start getting fun, but once it does, it's actually a pretty good time. It's still no masterpiece by any means, but like I always say when people give me shit for liking the Fast and Furious movies, not everything has to be Citizen Kane. Sometimes you just want some mindless, explosion-y fun. So further on we go, and eventually make our way to the last main locale for the game, the Hoover Dam. After we clear off the top and jump off all James Bond style, we make our way inside for the final set of levels. The difficulty ramps up quite a bit here, but none of it really felt unfair. There were a few of the battle arenas where I was actually able to play the game as I think it was intended to. See, in the earlier levels I was complaining about the 2-gun limit and the lack of ammo for those guns and the slow reloads and yada yada yada. But here near the end, there were enough intentional weapon placements as well as enough enemy weapon drops that I was able to use my guns, then pick up another gun in the arena, and then use that one, and so it did feel more like an old school shooter. Instead of spending the whole fight using only 2 guns, I was using a wider array. All good things must come to an end though, and the last couple of levels got really irritating again. Between annoying underwater sections and annoying-er platforming sections. I was starting to feel that rage boil up inside of me again, and it all came to a head with Blowing the Dam Part 1.
Don't forget to bring a towel.
Previous levels had some short, crappy underwater sections, but this whole thing takes place underwater, and then there's this bastard leech boss that I complained about earlier. I went into this fight remembering that I hated it when I played it years ago, but I didn't remember just how brutal it was. Once we do finally kill it, we're then able to escape the dam while the game just starts throwing everything it can at us. Honestly though, other than this stupid long stairwell with the explosive barrels part, the rest isn't too bad. We're then thrown into that final boss fight, we take him down, pee in his eye, and fly out of there as everything explodes.
Game over.
So yeah, the first part of the game is kinda bleh, but it picks up about halfway through and it keeps going almost until the very end. And if you're someone that's actually good at games, the end and that stupid boss might even actually be okay for you. So enough about the game itself. What about Duke's personality? After all, that was one of the main appeals of the original game. He was a mashup of all the 80s and 90s action heroes. He subsisted off a steady diet of beer, babes, steroids, and classic one-liners. So how well did that carry over? Well, it sort of did. There's some good one-liners here, and overall his personality is mostly intact. Like, especially in the opening cinematic before the main menu, it's playing the highlights from Duke 3D and showing him in all of his macho glory. And the very end of that, he sets off a nuke, and then you get to see it going off while he stands in the foreground stoically smoking his cigar and not even flinching. Classic Duke. But then there's stuff I mentioned earlier of him looking at porno, and the fact that even though I as the player am the one making him do it, he's burgling turds out of a toilet. That's such an un-Duke-like thing to do. It's sort of like a 14-year-old wrote some of this. And speaking of something a 14-year-old wrote, there's also some writing for the other characters that sounds like it was written by middle schoolers who just discovered swearing and think it's the coolest thing ever. I'm by no means anti-profanity, but there's parts where it just gets excessive. It reminds me of this clip from Drawn Together that even though it's funny because it's so over the top.
I want to fuck the head off a fucking pig and rip its fucking guts out and then fuck its fuckity fuck 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 fucky fuck 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 fuck.
Lastly, I just want to touch on some of the graphical and performance stuff. I think the graphics overall are pretty decent. This game is 14 years old now, so they are definitely dated, and it's hard to remember how all games looked back then for a direct comparison to its time period. There's some muddy textures and some overly blocky objects in places, but nothing majorly stuck out to me as abysmal. What I did have problems with, though, was the frame rate. There were a lot of stutters when I played, mostly with video, but also some audio ones. And now, truthfully, that might be a PS3 thing. I know the system was hard to program for some reason, and I know a lot of the games at the time people would say the PS3 version was inferior to the others. I didn't have a 360 though, so I just kind of made do, and for the most part, I still enjoyed my games. Like, I even made it through Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Skyrim on PS3 despite their notorious jankiness. One of the Fallouts, I think it was New Vegas though, I wasn't able to complete because one of the missions near the end just would stutter so bad and everything would freeze up and crash, and after multiple tries I just gave up on it. With that said though, the performance issues are still kind of disappointing, especially for an FPS game where lag can cause you to unfairly die. And also the lip syncing is just atrocious. PS3 could definitely do better than this. Hell, PS2 could do better than this. Hell, N64 could do better than this.
Oh, hello. Can you help me? I need to get home and go to bed because I don't feel very well at all.
So, back to the question from the start. Is Duke Nukem Forever actually good? No. Is Duke Nukem Forever terrible? Also no. This game has its faults, no doubt, but it's not the unplayable dumpster fire that some people try to frame it as. It did take a while for me to start having fun, but I believe that's due to the slow start, which isn't unique to this game, and possibly just the fact that when it did start picking up, I got my ass kicked initially. Once I started getting a larger health bar and some better guns though, I finally got into my groove. There's some standard FPS locations as well as some more obscure spots like the Burger Joint or the Shrunken Machine or the Wild Western-esque areas. And for a game that you can pick up for the price of a meal at McDonald's, I think it's worth it, and as a bonus, unlike McDonald's, it won't give you explosive diarrhea. And if you're able to get the PC version with the expanded inventory, presumably better game performance, and I'm sure much better controls with keyboard and mouse, you might actually have a good time. Anywho, thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, always bet on Duke, and
Hail to the king, baby.